So good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is John Haig. I'm the Executive Dean of the Kennedy School, and I'm also the co-director of the Center for Business and Government, and I wanted to welcome all of you on behalf of Dean David Elwood and the Kennedy School in general. This is a wonderful, wonderful dinner. It happens twice a year, and it's the closing dinner for the Rappaport Summer Fellows Program, as all of you know. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming. A couple things. I'd like to acknowledge some very important people who are here this evening. We have with us Representative Kevin Honan, Representative Denise Provost, Representative Jeff Sanchez, and Representative Diana DiZaglio. Hopefully they're all interspersed around here somewhere with all of you. We also have with us a number of appointed officials that I want to say thank you for coming. It's at the heart of this program that we engage with many of these public officials. Kate Cook, the Chief Legal Counsel to Governor Patrick, Bill Sinnott, the Corporation Counsel of the City of Boston, and then there are also a number of you from the Rappaport Center and the Rappaport Institute Advisory Boards, and again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. And next, and certainly in many ways so critical to the program, I'd like to thank Jerry and Phyllis Rappaport. This program simply would not exist without their support and help, and perhaps even more importantly, the vision of what this could be and its ability to contribute to the Boston community. So in shaping a great there are a number of people here from the various the Rappaport Center staff. Steve Poppick, Greg Massing, and all of your staffs, I'd like to thank you for pulling this together. It's never a small feat to have 100+ people at an event like this. We have with us also our partners in this process from Suffolk Law School, Eileen Seidman, who is the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Clinical Professor of Law, and Jerry Slater, the Assistant Dean for Professional and Career Development. And then I'd also like to thank, in many ways, all the critical mentors of our fellows, because that's what makes it work. The fact that so many of you really support our fellows in the process. And then I guess I'd like to just touch base as the executive dean of the school. You know, if you think about what the mission of the Kennedy School is, it really is about bringing people into public service to solve the most pressing public problems and address the most pressing public opportunities. And this program is so critical, and in many ways, within the school, just so you're aware, and even within Harvard, it is seen as a massive success story. It is quite successful in terms of bridging for us, our students, from the academic world into the practical world of local community activities. And it's so critical, particularly for the city of Boston. And so what you do here reaches so far beyond just simply a Boston-focused community program. For us, it's a learning model. It's an opportunity for us to try to figure out how we can extend this approach into other areas. So for that, I want to say thank you as well. The last thing I want to mention is that the real interesting part of this evening for me is hearing all the fellows talk. I really enjoy hearing them with their mentors talk about what they're doing, the nature of the programs they're working on, and I have nothing more interesting ahead of me than to just hear you talk about your activities. So with that, I'll try to keep it brief. I want to introduce Al Roberts. He's the Faculty Director of the Rappaport Center for Law and Public Service at Suffolk, and the Jerome Lau Rappaport Professor of Law and Public Policy at Suffolk Law School. And he has a few comments to open us up to the fellows, but I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed the evening as much as I plan to enjoy it, and thank you for coming very much.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Al Roberts. I'm the Rappaport Professor of Law and Public Policy over at Suffolk University and Law School, and I have the pleasure of working with Greg Massing, who's the Executive Director of the Rappaport Center, and Jackie Lavers and Mia Friedman in putting together the Law and Public Policy program and also all of the other good work that the Center does. And I have one principal function to perform at the moment. In a moment, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our first fellow. I'll start over at the table over here. And the assignment that the fellows have been given is to tell you in 2 minutes what they've been up to this summer. And this is appalling, but I guess it was going to happen in a public policy program. I've already been asked, you know, what's the penalty if I go over 2 minutes? I'm an academic, so we'll use the form of discipline that's conventional in my home. If you breach the rules, I will take you aside and read to you from my latest book. I don't want to brag, but it's a pretty powerful punishment. We're very fortunate in Boston to have programs like this. There's no other city that has fellows programs like the ones that Boston has that does the sort of work you're about to hear about. And it's a real a blessing for the city for 2 reasons. The first, as you will shortly see, is that it knits together so many educational institutions and governing institutions in the city and brings people together who have a really strong interest and commitment to public service. And the second thing that it does is bridge a gap between 2 fields that ought to talk to each other a lot, but on the academic side don't talk to each other as much as they ought to. And that the one side is law and the other side are the programs in public policy. And so the other thing that this program does very effectively is foster a conversation among people who are interested in law and also interested in public policy. And the third thing that's most important is that it allows people who have a very strong commitment to public service to act on that commitment and do some really fascinating things. So without further ado, I'm going to pull the microphone out and I will start at the table here and you'll hear about what the students have been up to this summer. I've been assured this is on.
Hello. I'm Sean Tierney, and I'm a student at Suffolk Law School. This summer, I worked at the Attorney General's office in the Policy and Government Division. But first, I'd like to thank John Haig for hosting me. I started my career here at the Kennedy School, where I worked for 4 years before going on to law school. It's nice to be back here again. What I worked on this summer was, well, it started last summer where the state legislature passed a bill on foreclosure prevention. And out of that bill, they created the Foreclosure Impact Task Force, FIT Force. So the first day of work, I had to do 100 push-ups to get ready for all that I had to do. And so what my main charge was to come up with a report for the viability of a foreclosure mediation program in Massachusetts, getting borrowers and lenders to come together to discuss alternatives. And the idea was behind this that abandoned homes would be reduced and there would some urban blight in some of the areas like Lawrence and Lynn, Springfield, and believe it or not, out in Western Mass, there's a few towns too that are really hurting from the foreclosure crisis. That if you got folks together to talk about alternatives, that maybe you'd have some better outcomes. And so what I've done is put together about a 20-page report outlining all the various models across the United States. There's about 48 jurisdictions across the country that have a mediation program. And I discussed, within the Massachusetts legal framework, if there's a viable option of having a program in Massachusetts. And what I've learned is that you got to set clear goals, because part of the task force, what they do is they work with lenders, they work with borrowers, but they also work with legislators and other advocates. And so what you need to do is realize that you got to know what your goal is, and what works for Massachusetts may not be what worked for Nevada or what worked for Connecticut, and that you have to work within the framework and understand that the legal framework can be your friend, because you can't change everything. All you can change is that small piece that you've been working on, and use that framework that already exists to your benefit, and then work within it, because there's no cookie cutter public policy, and then you have to work to figure out a solution for your region and your community. And it's been a great experience. I have 1 more week, so we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick Carney. I'm an MPP here at the Kennedy School, and I was working for the Rail and Transit Division at MassDOT, Department of Transportation, this summer. And I was working on, well, for those of you who don't know, there are 15 regional transit agencies apart from the MBTA in the state, and most people don't know anything about them, for better and for worse. But some of them are run very well, and some of them have some issues. And so I was charged with updating a report on the current state of those transit agencies. And for the first time ever in the 30, 40-year history of the agencies putting together a capital plan for them, which is pretty standard operating procedure for any transit agency. So this was big and exciting, and a big task. I learned that it's very difficult to get people to do what they don't want to do. And so I walk away from the summer very appreciative of the ability of relationships, of personal relationships, to get things done and grease the wheels. And how when you make clear to people that you want to work with them to get something done and collaborate, that you can get something done. Even if it's not as much as you hoped. So it was a great experience. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Madrigal. I am a student at the Harvard School of Public Health studying health policy, and I spent my summer at the Massachusetts Health Connector under the supervision of Caitlin Kenny, the Director of Policy and Research. My interest is in healthcare cost containment, and my summer project focused on the ways in which we pay providers and how the different ways in which we do that influences provider behavior and ultimately the cost of healthcare. And one of the things that I learned is that payment reform is an incredibly complex subject, because healthcare in this country can be very fragmented, and it's very difficult to get people to change behavior that they've been in for a very long time. But my final deliverable is a process recommendation to the connector to basically help them think of how they can leverage themselves as an agency to promote alternative payment methods among their carriers. And I'm also working through a pilot project that can hopefully help them increase uptake of small businesses and individuals in the carriers, in the connector, and also to possibly encourage them to enter into contracts with carriers that are using alternative payment methods to control costs in healthcare. So, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Good, good. I'm Cynthia Lesh, and I'm in my third year at Northeastern University School of Law. Before I take my quick 90 seconds, I'm joined tonight by one of my mentors, Abim Thomas, and my fiance, Ivan Lariano, so I want to thank you two for coming tonight. I appreciate it. This summer I was at the Boston Redevelopment Authority, and I've been telling everyone tonight that one thing I've learned is that the VRA really has their hands in everything. So I've learned so much this summer. And it was really exciting and interesting being there this summer, especially with Mayor Menino serving his last month as mayor. So it's been really exciting. What I was focused on this summer was coming up with policy recommendations for climate change preparedness of buildings in the city of Boston. Now you guys are probably thinking, what is climate change preparedness? What is this? What were you doing all summer? So let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever been a part of a flood drill? Nobody, right? How many of you have been a part of a fire drill? Fire drill, okay, everybody has that. But no one's been a part of a flood drill. Now when you think about, the most recent incident with Hurricane Sandy and the flooding that happened in New York, this is something that's very real. We do need to be thinking about extreme temperatures and sea level rise. So this summer I was really focused on coming up with policy recommendations for new construction, especially in the waterfront area for new developments. So it was really exciting. And what we focused on was an assessment of existing buildings and institutional buildings and thinking about what they're doing presently for climate change preparedness, and sometimes it was nothing. And then using best practices to figure out policies for new construction. So I had the best summer. I learned a lot. What I found to be most interesting is, working with the attorneys is wonderful. I'm in law school, I want to be an attorney. But working with the designers and planners and policymakers in conjunction with the attorneys was even more fun. Kind of being at the table with everyone that's directly involved with moving policy forward was really exciting to see how it all plays out, because alone, you kind of can't get it done. You do need all of those moving parts. So I enjoyed my summer just learning something new about development in the city of Boston, especially at the waterfront, and having my recommendations under review, and I'm very optimistic about some of them being accepted, so that's really cool. In addition to that, these designers and planners and architects, they've inspired me to sit for the LEED AP exam. So that's the Leadership in Environmental Energy and Design, and it's the Accredited Professional Accreditation. I'm super excited. I'm actually sitting for that at the end of this summer, so please wish me luck, because it's going to be a hard task learning something completely new in addition to all the law school work that I have. So they've inspired me to do that. And I just want to end with some of the things that I learned this summer was all of the zoning code, all of the regulatory language for waterfront development in the state of Massachusetts. It's been really fun coming up with policy recommendations based on code and regulatory language. Of course, everyone loves those things. So with all that I've learned, I hope to just take this and bring it back to my neighborhood and bring it back to all of the environmental law work that I plan on doing. And really, I've enjoyed myself, enjoyed my experience, my mentors, and everything that Rappaport has done for me. So thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Gaspard. I am a 2L at New England Law School, and this summer I worked at the Boston Public Health Commission. My supervisor here is Lisa Connolly, and I worked in the Intergovernmental Relations Department. What I did this summer was work on ACA implementation in Massachusetts. ACA means Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And what we worked on was on how different segments of the ACA will impact different demographics in Massachusetts, mainly seniors, young adults, small businesses, and regular taxpayers. And we talked about how people would possibly have to pay penalties if they didn't get health care, and breaking it down into more simple language so everyone can understand exactly how something as convoluted as the ACA can be if you ever read through the bill or read in parts of it. So that was one part that I did for my summer. Another part that I did for the summer that I thought was really cool was the welfare reform bill that was recently enacted by the state legislature. As you guys know, Governor Patrick proposed amendments onto the welfare reform bill, and basically just went through the bill, broke it down section by section, and gave forth my opinions, the good and the bad, about the bill and how it would impact regular people who are on welfare and regular impact taxpayers in Massachusetts there. So that was something that I thought was a great initiative. Third thing that I did was increasing minimum wage. I actually got to go to the State House, I got to go to a hearing and hear people, regular people, talk about how minimum wage would help them, help their families. Now, you may think, how does that affect Boston Public Health Commission? Well, your health outcomes really are directly correlated oftentimes with your income. And we thought that was a great standard for people to show that increasing the minimum standard was a great thing for everybody, taxpayers, and people that actually have better health outcomes if they make more money. So that was one reason why I thought that was really good. And lastly, the best thing I liked about the Boston Public Health Commission was the thing that we have called racial justice and health equities, and how your social parameters, where you live, how you live, what zip code you live in, how you look like, can often dictate your health inequities. And those are something big that I feel that's really important in terms of healthcare law. It's all about saving money and how people get better healthcare outcomes. And I thought that was a great initiative that we learned about, that I learned about, that I took forth with me for the summer and beyond. So I want to thank Lisa and the Boston Public Health Commission for hosting me this summer. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Hauk. I'm a student at the Graduate School of Design here at Harvard. I'm also a graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School. And I'm here with my grand poobah boss, Eric Friedman, of the Department of Energy Resources, and my mentor, Carol Burns, who is an architect downtown Boston. This summer, the primary focus of what I worked on, I actually worked on a smattering of projects, but one of the big ones was follow-up reporting related to the stimulus funding that Obama gave out in 2009. The state of Massachusetts got about $55 million to employ for its state energy program. And in so doing, it allowed Massachusetts to experiment with a whole lot of really interesting and innovative small projects, large projects. across a range of buildings, across a range of technologies. And it really did stimulate the Massachusetts economy. It created jobs. It reduced energy consumption, increased energy efficiency, and it reduced greenhouse gases in the state. So one of the things I learned this summer was about 700 new acronyms. And I also learned that this department and this state is doing incredible work related to energy consumption and energy reduction. And it's actually, and I'm not really trying to kiss up here, but it's people like Eric who have an enormous amount of passion for this work. And Eric's been around the department, what, 15 years? More than 15? Sorry. At least 3 years. 6 months he's been with the Department of Energy Resources doing wonderful work. And so it's heartening to me, you know, after years of hearing terrible stories about climate change, and that they're still true, but there's a lot of solutions that just never get talked about. So I feel very privileged to have been a part of this program.
Hi everyone, my name is Roby Champagne and I'm a second-year doctoral student in Applied Child Development at Tufts University. I spent the summer working at the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services, which is the juvenile justice agency for the Commonwealth. And I primarily worked with the Committee on Positive Youth Development to explore how the department can adopt more of a strength-based approach through identifying and capitalizing on the skills and abilities of youth in custody. So I've been working on different reports and manuals which suggest how staff at all levels within the agency can work to empower youth within their care. We'll be conducting follow-up focus groups to collect staff feedback on our proposed positive youth development framework. We've also talked about incorporating a measure of positive youth development so that we can systematically capture youth strengths in different areas and really use that information to inform treatment planning and also to better understand why some young offenders show positive change and are able to turn their lives around. So that may be a longer-term project that I'm involved with. This experience has taught me how challenging it is to bridge theory with practice within a large-scale operational work environment, but the Department of Youth Services is really making great strides in trying to become more evidence-based and measure its impact and performance in different areas, and I hope to continue to work with the agency in pursuit of these goals. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to really integrate my research background with my long-held passion to help improve life outcomes for youth in the juvenile justice system. So thank you to the Rappaports, to everyone at the Rappaport Institute, and to my supervisors at DYS for this amazing opportunity.
Good evening, my name is Nicole Fink, a rising 2L at New England Law. My placement this year was at the Mental Health Legal Advisors Committee, which is part of agency by the SJC. And so I actually had two main projects this year. The first one is very similar to Melissa's in terms of cost containment and payment reform for providers in the healthcare field, but a little from a different perspective, just ever so slightly. And my second project was actually lobbying for access to education. The ACLU and Citizens for Juvenile Justice recently put out a report where mostly in Springfield, Worcester, and in Boston, they're actually utilizing arrest for students disproportionately arresting students of color and students who have behavioral issues and emotional issues, especially at schools that are meant for students to go with behavioral issues, and they're, rather than helping provide them supports, they're actually arresting them and taking them out of school, and leaving them with criminal records and all of the mental health and stress and trauma that results from being arrested as a teenager. Some of these students are as young as 10 years old. So the Mental Health Legal Advisors Committee has been the main organizers on a bill that has been put forth in legislation, and I've been working on it, helping with lobbying and writing testimony and collecting testimony. And I think throughout this whole process, I definitely agree with what everyone else has said, but I definitely walked away from this fellowship with a lot more confidence. Coming from Connecticut, I call myself a stranger to the state. I know everything about Connecticut, I know nothing about Massachusetts. And I think having my 3 supervisors, Phil, Susan, and Miriam, it's kind of like a mini family now, and I know that I can go to them and say, I have an honest concern, or I'm not afraid to speak up in meetings, and that they're there to actually take my advice into consideration rather than just kind of brushing aside that I'm an intern, and really have let me put some of what I've thought about and some of what I've come up with into action, and I really appreciate them for that. And they're letting me stay in the fall, so I guess they like me. So thank you very much also to the Rappaports and to Greg and Alistair for everything that you've helped me do this summer as well.
Hi, my name is Melissa Threadgill. I'm a Master of Public Policy student here at the Kennedy School, and I actually also spent my summer at the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services. I worked on 2 projects for the department this summer. One was helping them figure out how they could implement a performance management system. So all those outcomes that Roby was talking about, the nuts and bolts of actually tracking those in the community so they know what's going on with the youth in their care. The second thing I did was help the department sort of diagnose some of the issues they've been having around recruitment and turnover and morale in their clinical program, and to figure out what new management strategies they could do to fix some of these problems. So to do this work, I interviewed 72, count them, 72 members of the DYS staff, from the commissioner all the way down to entry-level positions. And I had the chance to visit 5 programs, programs in all 5 regions. And this was really the highlight of the summer for me, because it was through these conversations that I learned what it means to be a good manager, what people are looking for in a supervisor and what they hate, what you can do to motivate them to work harder or frustrate them and stop them in their tracks, how your actions can encourage them to be innovative and creative in their work, or how your actions can inadvertently tell them to just keep their head down and keep their good ideas to themselves. I learned how tough it is and how often communication breaks down in a large agency, and how the messages that the people at the top are sending, by the time they get to the field staff, are not the messages that were originally intended, and how those messages can be misinterpreted, sometimes really poorly. And most of all, I just really learned just how hard it is to get concrete, measurable results when you have to go through all these layers of management and bureaucracy. And why does this matter to me? I really hope to be running a large organization someday, a human services organization. And I just have no doubt that when I get there, that I'm going to be a better manager and a better leader because of all these conversations that I had the chance to have and all the lessons I learned from entry-level people all the way up. So I'm just so grateful for this opportunity, and I really want to thank the Rappaport Foundation for the opportunity.
I guess I'll move over this way, since everyone keeps going to the side. I'm Michael Canella. I'm a dual degree student, actually, at Boston University in law and Master's in Public Health. This summer I interned also at the Attorney General's office with Sean, but I was in the antitrust division, mostly focused on healthcare and anti-competitive issues in the Commonwealth. Most of my work, unfortunately, relates to an ongoing investigation of a major Eastern Massachusetts healthcare provider. You can count those all in one hand, read the papers, but I can't tell you too much about that. What I can say from that process is I learned the benefits and difficulties of collaborating with federal agencies like the FTC and the DOJ. I had the honor to participate and contribute in discussions about whether there's a good faith basis to bring allegations of violations of state and federal antitrust law. But investigation work aside, I'd say my crowning moment was part of my responsibility was reviewing legislation filed in the state legislature here that would alter the relationship, the newly created relationship between the Health Policy Commission and the Attorney General's office to review a lot of structural corporate changes that happen in the healthcare sector here. And I happened to come across a piece of legislation that would change that less-than-year-old dynamic, and the division had never actually been aware of it. So I found something new and brought it to my division chief's attention, and usually, I guess this is what always happens when you're a little bit of a go-getter, you get told to write a report about it. So I I'm still working on a policy impact analysis on our ability to enforce competition law in the healthcare sector, and it should hopefully be finished in the next week or so. But I guess I just want to finish talking about my experience in the summer and talk about two things that really left an important impression on me working in the antitrust division. The first is it's just on a professional level, just working in the division and getting a fuller appreciation of how it's embracing its new role, this more robust role in reviewing anti-competitive activity in the healthcare sector. I like to say, you have a fireplace in your home because you want the fire to heat your house, not burn it down. And that's part of what they're doing. And I'm getting a full appreciation of how important that role is to achieve our cost control and quality control goals here. And then on a personal note, like so many other folks who've spoken before me, I was really touched by the fact that people in my division were willing to integrate me into the team and rely on me and my particular knowledge and expertise, combining my knowledge of healthcare law, healthcare policy, to complement their vast knowledge, vastly superior knowledge of antitrust law and institutional knowledge. And hopefully over the next week and a half or so, because like Sean, I'm still going, I can learn just a little bit more. So thank you very much. It's been wonderful evening so far.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruth Sapelt. I'm a Master of City Planning student at MIT. And this summer I worked for Representative Kevin Honan, who is co-chair of the Subcommittee on Housing in the Massachusetts State Legislature. The Committee on Housing is currently researching public housing in light of two competing bills that outline some pretty drastic reforms to public housing administration across the Commonwealth. And one of the most powerful ways that I was able to contribute to their work this summer was that I was able to interview leaders in public housing and administrators and staffers at various local housing authorities. And I learned so much from the people that I interviewed. And in particular, I came away with some really amazing ideas for public policy reform in public housing. And the relationship between the people who develop policy and the people whose lives are affected by policy is something that I've thought about for years. And this experience has helped me realize that I can have a major impact on the circumstances that shape people's lives without being distanced from the people that I seek to serve. So it's been a really powerful experience for me. I am pleased that I will be continuing on with the committee in the fall and be able to see this project through. And I would just like to thank Representative Kevin Honan and Kurt Siegel, who supervised me. I'd also like to thank Representative Jeffrey Sanchez from Jamaica Plain, who found desk space for me in his office. And Laura Delgado, who was a great mentor, and Tim Warren, who was also another mentor of mine. Everyone from the Rappaport Institute, an excellent staff there who were very supportive. And of course, Mr. and Mrs. Rappaport for making this all possible. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Araceli Gutierrez, and I'm a graduate student at the Harvard School of Public Health, and I had the opportunity to work with Representative Jeffrey Sanchez as chair of the Joint Committee on Public Health. This summer, I worked on a project that really evaluated how Massachusetts health reform complements the implementation of the Affordable Care Act's community benefits provision. So to that end, I developed and implemented a community health survey in the Bromley Heath housing development. And I've based most of my time there actually instead of at the State House. And really, the Bromley Heath community, as you might know or may not know, it's a community that's facing a lot of poverty, a lot of violence and crime, and is one of many of the Boston Housing Authority development sites. And so the goal of this survey, one that hasn't been done before, is to really try to state what the current state of health is for Bromley Heath residents, and with the hopes of, when looking at healthcare delivery models and systems, how the most vulnerable populations can be served. And my hope is that with the preliminary results of the survey, I'm happy to report, I wrote a grant, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation was able to fund incentives so that the participants funded in addition to stipends so that community members and residents could be engaged in participating in this, and they were trained in basic data collection as well. So 5 of the 6, as of today, this afternoon actually, 5 of the 6 community health members have been trained. They're out collecting, and we have over 180 surveys collected to date. And we hope to reach our goal of 200 by the end of the week. And 2 of the things that I took away from this experience is the basic understanding that politics, all politics are local. And then understood that through Representative Sanchez, and knowing that the real value in a politician is knowing what the important personal goals are of the community, and being able to connect at that level. And I've also grown to appreciate the impact of social policy and what it can have on a community, and how that is our biggest vehicle as a transformative agent of change in these types of populations. So I am also affirmed in my commitment to community. I'm very much grateful for this opportunity. Thank you to the Rappaport for that. And my commitment to continue at Bromley stands even after this internship, and I look forward to continuing on. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Sarah Brown, and I'm a dual degree student at MIT in Real Estate Development and Urban Planning. And my placement this summer was at D&D, which was largely due to a happy accident of Polly O'Brien introducing me to Devin Perks, who's the Director of Operations there and a former Rappaport Fellow. And he supervised a lot of my work this summer. My primary project at D&D has been to work on tax title, which is one of those secret processes of government that no one knows that much about, but are very important. And the job that I did there was coordinating data between the assessing department, the law department, and D&D, so that D&D has a better sense of the properties that will be coming through the tax title process. And tax title is actually the process through which, for those of you who are not familiar with it, cities obtain most of the land that they own. So currently D&D owns about 1,400 parcels and 60 buildings throughout the city. While I was at D&D as well, I worked on developing an open space plan for the disposition of land. And I also worked on improvements to our classification of property and our property inventory system, as well as my secret passion, which is addressing problematic landlords who refuse to clean up their properties. And I just want to thank the Rappaports for granting me this opportunity, Devin Quirk for allowing me to discover my hitherto unknown flair for operations, Polly O'Brien for making the connection, and all of the other fellows that I've had the chance to work with this summer.
Hi, my name is Sarah Atkins, and I'm a rising 2L at Harvard Law School. This summer I worked at Massachusetts Advocates for Children, which is a nonprofit that does both direct services and policy work, and I work in the policy division. My favorite part about my summer at MAC was the diversity of work I was able to do. My boss has been there a really long time. She's able to kind of formulate her own job description to do what she likes to do. So I worked on implementing policy on all different levels of government. So at the very highest level, I worked on kind of an up-in-the-clouds research project around the DSM change in the diagnosis of autism. The DSM is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health that's used to diagnose children. So we work in special education, so that has a lot of impact on the children I'm working on. So the easy part was I wrote like a 40-page paper, but the hardest part was I had to condense that into a 1-page fact sheet, which was much more difficult than the very long paper. So on the next level down, I worked on implementing policy on a state level. So we met with different senators and representatives to work on making sure the policy we helped pass was actually being implemented and being implemented well. And we could also see where the problems were and make adjustments there. So level after that, I also met with individual school districts. We're working with a school district that is in receivership, and they're having a lot of problems with their autism program. And so we're kind of doing like private consulting work with them. So I was able to meet with their superintendent and make recommendations on how to improve their services to children with autism. And then on the very most basic individual level, I was able to go to IEP meetings. So IEP meetings are individual educational plans for children with disabilities to help them excel in school. And working on that individual level really helped me remind me why I'm doing this broader-based policy work, so I'm able to affect more than one person at a time. My husband's here tonight, and Chris, and my two mentors, Stephen and Michelle, and Joan from Opie at Harvard Law School. So it's a good night. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe McCarthy. I'm going to be a 2L at Suffolk Law this fall, and I spent the summer working for David Sullivan at the Executive Office for Administration and Finance. I was fortunate enough to get paired up with Brendan Greeley, Bill Senate. I want to also thank Greg and the Rappaport family for this opportunity. Very humbled to be working with this group of people. Joined here tonight by my mother, Mary Ann, who's about to kill me. But she's a big, and probably the biggest reason that I'm here. She's a small business owner in Malden, and that kind of got me going on economic development policy. And fortunately, David gave me the opportunity to work on redrafting economic development regulations right at the beginning of the internship to streamline the process that links public and private partnerships to create jobs right here in Massachusetts. And that was very rewarding, because growing up in a household that values small businesses, and anything that increases development, gets people a good, well-paying job is of the highest priority and is incredibly rewarding work. That said, I've always had a very profound belief in a government that's directly accountable to the people, and I got to draft a report to the legislature, which is pending, I believe, approval from the Secretary of the Commonwealth, that will have A&F draft a budget analysis for an affirmative vote on any ballot initiative. So when you cast yes on question 1, we're going to be able to provide an effect on the Commonwealth's bottom line for you coming up in the 2014 election cycle. And again, very rewarding, because you're bringing the government to the people. And you're allowing them to be more invested in the process. And I think that's one of the big takeaways I've had from this summer. Is when you're pushing a policy initiative, you have to have your shareholders, your stakeholders, bought in. You need to make sure that they're on board. You build a team. And when you build a team, you provide cover for one another, and you can move it forward. That's how it gets done. It's no one doing it all alone. It's no one taking all the credit. It's a shared burden. It's shared responsibility. And that's how you get a government that's both accountable to the people and worthy of the public trust. So I can't thank all my fellows enough for working with you this summer. To all the mentors, thank you very much. And again, to the Rappaport family, thank you very much. This is a tremendous opportunity. Humbled for it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vicki Morty. I'm starting my second year at Northeastern Law. I've been at the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination for the summer, working in the Enforcement Division. And in my role there, it's been my job to review cases to determine whether or not there's probable cause for them to move through to the next phase of our system. And part of doing that, I do 4 days a week. 1 day a week I get to sit with individuals who have come in to file complaints on intake. And that has been the most humbling part of my work at MCAD. Because when you're sitting down with someone who feels that he or she has been discriminated against, and you realize that the law is on their side and there is something that you can do for them, it's a really incredible feeling. And that part of my work has actually been what has made me most grateful for the policymakers in Boston, because it was through their advocacy that the protected classes that we have in place were put there for these people to appeal to. In all of my work before this summer, I've been able to be the advocate. This summer, I had to be neutral, and that was unbelievably difficult for me. So I'm excited to have realized that it is the advocacy of those people that makes that neutrality possible. It makes it possible for us to evaluate claims once that work has been done. I've also been able to see where the gaps in those protections are when someone comes in and I'm not able to help them because they're not covered.
One of the most glaring gaps that I came across this summer is in the Massachusetts Maternity Leave Act, which was enacted in 1972 and to this day only applies to women in the state. I've been able to research the way that that gap has been addressed in other states across the U.S. to better support families. I've been able to look over the notes from a working group that existed at the commission over the last few years and figure out what was stopping things up. Things like, should we include foster care? Is there a way to make this leave paid? I've been able to research, as I said, what other states have done, and I'm assembling all of that information into a package that I will leave behind at the commission, possibly as a gateway to greater change for Massachusetts. I want to thank my supervisors so much for the autonomy that they gave each and every intern to figure our way out through the law, and the support that they gave us when we went the wrong way. And I want to thank the Rappaports so much for this opportunity. It's been absolutely incredible.
I'll join the sidelines crew here. I'm Elise Gowdy Wright. I spent my summer at the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel, and for that reason, you can imagine I won't go into many specifics. But I can tell you about a wonderful process that I have been a part of this summer. This fellowship really has been a journey from the policy side to the inside. And when Greg Massing initially connected me to this office, I had no idea what to expect. I have had a 15-year career in nonprofit advocacy, and still this office and this placement gave me such a better appreciation for the policies that I would like to support in the future and what it really means and what is required in order to implement those policies. The Governor's Office of Legal Counsel is an intersection of policy and principles. It's a balancing of many, many, many different interests. It is a place where extensive research and very, very careful deliberation and diligence is undertaken. And I can tell you there is just such a deep respect in this office for the impact of the decisions that are made. In essence, I spent the summer where the edges meet. And at this intersection is a team led by Chief Counsel Kate. I'm not going to get emotional, but I've been gushing about this placement all summer, so forgive me. Chief Counsel Kate Cook, Deputy Chief Counsel Nick Martinelli. In fact, our entire team here is here today, and I would like to introduce them all. A former Rappaport fellow, Cecilia Ugarte Baldwin, who's sitting in the corner, Andrea Campbell, who is also here, and our newest addition, Pat Moore. Counselors, you really have given me a true sense of the Commonwealth and of the common good, and I really thank you for that this summer. And to Jerry and to Phyllis Rappaport, I've now seen, having gone through this program this summer, how this fellowship really is weaving the fabric of the future of this state, and not just of Boston. Please know that your vision is growing, and those of us who are here tonight, I know I'm not only speaking for myself, but we have heard the call, and we appreciate the opportunity to fulfill it. Thank you.
I really didn't want to have to follow that. First, my name is Mayumi Grigsby. I am a 2L at Northeastern University School of Law, and I was at the Governor's Office of Policy and Cabinet Affairs. I want to first thank the village that made this possible, obviously my mother, Jeff Smith, my advisor at Northeastern, and also the Rappaport for making this possible, Greg, Polly, Jackie, and everyone involved with making this run smoothly. I also have to stop and say thank you so much for placing me in this office. One of the best things about being in the Governor's Office of Policy and Cabinet Affairs is just the wealth of opportunities of what you get to do. And just being led by so many people who are experts in what they're doing and passionate and just so willing to encourage you and to actually help you and support you to go in through any path that you want to go on. And I have to say thank you to Maybad Cohen and Aaron McAleer and Alexander Gray, who couldn't be here today. One of the reasons that I was saying that there are such a wealth of opportunities is because I was in the enviable position of just having too many things to say and too many things that I worked on to fit into 2 minutes. But I will start with the most recent. Last week I had the opportunity to research U.S. foreign policy with regard to India and trade and intellectual property. I also had the opportunity to meet with fishermen in Gloucester to talk about the Commonwealth response to regulations regarding codfish and the decrease in the amount of codfish that fishermen are allowed to fish and the impact on those communities. One of the things that came out of that is that I'm actually going to continue working on that through a small business clinic when I go back to school next semester. Another thing I worked on while I was there that I was really happy about was working with the Safe and Successful Youth Initiative, which is the governor's response to youth violence in the Commonwealth. And it's actually a really innovative response that brings in all these different agencies to take the tact of giving more services to these at-risk youth. So instead of criminalizing people, you get to the root of the problem to see why these crimes are being committed, which I think is indicative of the innovation that is present in this administration. One of the highlights of my work, my tenure here this summer, was that I was on the train the other day and a statute that I had reviewed for the governor's office was in the paper, and I thought I had left my Texas roots behind, but I whacked the person next to me and was like, I worked on this. It's me, I did this. I also got to do life science, research on life science policy, both here and overseas, and it really brought together what my passion is for policy. The last work I did in policy was when I moved back to my native country of Liberia, and I worked for the first head of state in Africa, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And it was a similar experience working for Governor Deval Patrick's administration. And when I was in Liberia, I remember Skyping and emailing my mother after 18-hour days and just complaining and telling her how much work I was doing and how much more I had to do the next day. And I would come home this summer and call my mom and say, everyone's working. I mean, there's so much work being done, and I just feel like if I came in tomorrow and I said, I want to try and develop a new policy to deal with, environmental issues in the Commonwealth and how we can, make new jobs, and I feel like they would just say, well, go ahead and develop and come back and tell us what you found. And I think that was just the best part of this job, is just being able to run free and then also just be a part of such an amazing and inspiring administration and work with amazing people. So I definitely want to thank the Rappaports for this opportunity, and I hope to continue serving the Commonwealth in any way I can.
Hi, I'm Nathan Sanders. I'm a student at Harvard, and this summer I've been working with Representative Denise Provo and Senator Pat Jelen in Somerville. And what surprised me most about the Rappaport Fellowship Program, and what I'm most thankful for, is that it really has connected me to the greater Boston community in a way that I never thought would be possible when I moved here from Michigan 3 years ago. During that whole time, I've lived just a few blocks from the Mystic River, and during that time, I never knew about the environmental problems that face the river, even though I'm very interested in those issues. But it took just 1 week of working with these two very passionate legislators before I was completely emotionally invested in the future of the river and in trying to solve these problems that face it. And I became so invested over the course of the summer that I even convinced my wife Shannon to come on a canoe with me in the river and pull invasive plant species out of its water. So I really want to thank both the legislators and their fantastic staffs, especially Pooja Faltankar, who's my supervisor and Representative Provo's office, for the fantastic mentoring they gave me. And I'm so proud that we've accomplished so much over the summer. I'm looking forward to later this week when we're going to be filing a bill which would require cities which discharge sewage into these rivers to notify the public of the health risks of that practice. So I'll just conclude by thanking everyone who's here, everyone who makes the fellowship program possible, and I'll ask you, if you support this legislation, you can call your senator, your state representative, and let them know that they may want to support it.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Avador Rahman. I had the privilege this summer to work at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts' Department of Housing and Community Development, DACD, and my supervisor Larry Field is here. first and foremost, before I start what I did this summer, I want to thank Larry for the opportunity to have the chance to work with him, Deputy Undersecretary Arthur Jemison, and the staff at DACD. What they did teach me about public service this summer is something that you have to be in those trenches to learn. You can't learn there reading a book or doing anything else. You have to be there with Larry and Arthur day to day just to see the dedication and the belief and the heart and the passion they have for what they do. Having said that, what I did this summer was I had the chance to work on identifying housing opportunities and creative and innovative businesses for Secretary Bialecki's Metro North tour. The tour is comprised of 2 Boston neighborhoods and 7 cities. And the purpose of the tour was to highlight the opportunities that exist in the region, where the land cost is lower, where there is a history of mixed-use development, and there's a history and there's a passion and there is a desire for growth, which gives the Commonwealth some leverage and some opportunity to create jobs and housing and hopefully bring vitality back to some of these communities. What I learned through this process we did this summer at DACD was that in order for policies to be successful and to reach their intended goals and to meet those objectives, you have to have people that can build relationships and collaborate and work with other people. And Larry and Arthur were magnificent in teaching me how to do that, and I hope that I can take away that and bring that to whatever is next comes in my life. The other thing that I realized was the importance of mentorship and the need for mentorship for the current generation to pass on what they have learned so that we can pick up what they're working on and move that forward. I want to thank the Rappaport for giving us this opportunity to learn that, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to give me the chance of selecting me for this amazing experience. I want to thank Polly and Steve and my fellow fellows for the excellent, the awesome summer we had and for all your input and your advice and your friendship. And I want to thank Larry and Bill, who's not here, and Arthur, who's not here. And I want to thank my mentor, who I dragged down here today, who's a very busy man, Muhammad Ali Salam, for all the years of advice that he has been giving me and all the, I'm sure, yearblies I've given him over the years and the headaches I've caused him. But thank you for your time, for giving me your time and energy to teach me what you have learned. I hope that I can bring that and make you proud. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lainey Sullivan, and I have had the honor of working at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education this summer in the Office of the General Counsel. And I will be a 2L at Boston College, and I'm pursuing a dual degree for a master's in higher education. So this summer at DESE has really been the perfect marriage of law and education for me. I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight, to the mentors, to the supervisors, and to the parents who have formed us. I'd like to thank you for your continued support and guidance and for your presence as we embark to make social change. I'd especially like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Rappaport. I think you are really the connecting thread between all of the motivated individuals in this room. And when I think about the collective impact that this room can go out and make, I'm really quite moved. So I think my supervisor, Rhoda Schneider, said it best when she told me at the beginning of the summer, Lainey, we here at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed live at the intersection of law and policy. And so this summer, she proved that to be very true. I've worked on an amazing range of projects, from very technical, grounded legal work to very broad policy work. And I'd like to just talk to you about a few of those things tonight. On the technical legal side, I had the chance to work with Deb Steenland on some employment litigation that's ongoing, and really saw when you partner with the Attorney General's office what can be possible. In the middle of the spectrum, on the office's licensure side, I gained some case management experience, interviewing skills, and learned a lot about the collective judgment-making process about determining sanctions on licenses due to educator misconduct. And then finally, on the broad policy side, I spent the duration of the summer working on regulations guiding online Massachusetts public virtual schools, for which we awarded our first certificate in Massachusetts on July 1st. And it's been a rare opportunity to be able to be a part of a team of 4 people drafting these regulations as a summer intern. And I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to do some problem solving and propose a method for handling how individual students at different homes across the Commonwealth might get internet access to access their online education. So I've learned this summer that there's a direct pipeline between leadership and impact. And the belief that social change comes from inside of the system has really been both affirmed and informed this summer by my experience with the Rappaport Fellowship. And when I think about the ways that my peers will go out and really create change that will be better for this state and for this nation, I just am honored to have been a part of it. So thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Hi, my name is Mary Burkhauser, and I'm a doctoral student at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. This summer I also worked at the Department of Education with Heather Pesky, who is the Associate Commissioner for Teaching Quality. And if you follow education in the news, you'll know that there are two big initiatives that are getting a lot of play right now, the Common Core Standards being one and teacher evaluation systems being the other. And if you follow the news, you'll also know that many states right now are struggling greatly with implementing those two initiatives. Massachusetts, while challenged by the initiatives, because they're challenging initiatives, is not going through the same crises that other states are currently going through. And when I started this placement, I knew that in many ways Massachusetts leads the nation in education, but I didn't have a clear sense of why that was. And having worked there for 8 weeks now, I think one of the reasons why that's true of Massachusetts and why Massachusetts isn't struggling as much with these initiatives as other states is their commitment to bringing multiple stakeholders to the table when writing policy. One of the projects that I've worked on this summer is drafting model contract language that districts will use when they bargain parts of their teacher evaluation systems with their local unions. And we didn't just sit in a room and come up with what we thought the model contract language should be. We spent a lot of time getting in touch with our district contacts, superintendents, with our union contacts, and with other stakeholders who are really in the know about this, to ask them, what would you like to see in that contract language, and what should definitely not be in there? And what are some of the challenges that you anticipate arising when you're trying to bargain this language, so that we can try to help you with that? The model contract language is an ongoing process. We hope to have a draft done by the end of August. Deb Steenland, who's here from legal, is also working on this. And Deb, sorry about the tight turnaround in that draft we sent you last night. But working on that project and the others that I've been involved with this summer has been wonderful. So thank you so much to the Rappaport family, to the staff at the Rappaport Institute. I really enjoyed the Wednesday night adventures around Boston. And also to Heather Pesky, who couldn't be here. She's on vacation, but was really sorry to miss this. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I think they put all the education folks right here at this table near the exit. I don't know what that means. Good evening. My name is Mirza Ramic. I am a graduate student at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. This summer, I've been working at the Department of Higher Education, where I will continue my placement until the end of August. Thus far, I have contributed to several different projects, but the one that's been quite fascinating and eye-opening for me personally has been the research into how distance learning, especially when provided by for-profit companies, should be regulated in our state so that students receive quality education and are protected as consumers. Now, I came into the department extremely enthusiastic about the potential of technology to improve and innovate education. My supervisor, Dr. Carlos Santiago, who's kindly joined us here tonight, will happily attest to that enthusiasm. And though I do still believe in this potential of technology, I've come to realize that there are often many important and serious side effects, market failures, so to say, involved with any new innovation. So the biggest lesson for me thus far, through meetings, department meetings with the Attorney General's office, and conversations with my peers, coworkers, has been that policy and regulation must protect citizens from any predatory behavior by companies and individuals. And while my private sector experience has taught me that embracing innovation is the key to progress. Ensuring that citizens are not the losers in the sea of change is and should be any government agency's priority. So working at the Department of Higher Education this summer has made me realize just how important this responsibility to protect is. And I've come to truly appreciate the hard work that goes behind the scenes to ensure that this takes place. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tara Abishan. I'm a Master in City Planning student at MIT, and my fellowship is at the Cambridge Housing Authority. I'm investigating the existing rent collection process and looking at alternative rent payment options with 3 goals in mind. The first is to streamline and make processes more cost-effective. Second, to harness technology to improve customer service. And third, to expand options while also incentivizing high-quality financial services like checkings and savings accounts. I think that last piece is extremely important because rent is a really large transaction for most families. And right now at the Cambridge Housing Authority, nearly 40% of residents pay their rent with a money order, and many of them may not have a checkings account. A recent Brookings study shows that a full-time worker could save up to $40,000 over their career by using a low-cost checkings account as opposed to check cashing services. And to put that in perspective, the median income for a family in Cambridge public housing is almost a third of that $40,000. So it's a pretty big impact. So I'm working with staff this summer to incentivize direct draw with a bank account, create an online rent payment system, and to hopefully design a financial education fair in the coming year. So I want to thank the Rappaport Institute, my great supervisor, Kathleen Evans, my mentors, Ellen Ward and Amy Dean, and the Cambridge Housing Authority for supporting me this summer. It's been a really great experience. I've learned the importance of asset building for families and for community development. I'm excited to work on these issues in the future. Thanks.
Good evening, my name is Matt Sanders. I will be a third-year law student at Boston College Law School, and my placement this summer was at the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities, and I'm joined by our General Counsel, Rebecca Tepper, and also my mentor, Lynn Huckabee, and my lovely wife, Jen. Thank you to all the people who made this possible this evening. The work that I did primarily this summer was to work on the grid modernization project, which is a comprehensive project that's designed to, hopes to improve reliability and the resiliency of the electric grid in the Commonwealth, along with effecting change in optimizing peak demand and to reduce energy consumption across the state to promote energy efficiency. I was part of a group of legal analysts, technical analysts, and economists, and worked on processing the work of a stakeholder working group that met last year into this year to present a report on what sort of functionalities we would want to achieve to have a modernized grid. It was a really compelling experience to be part of a group of people who are really, really smart. And this is a really complicated project to understand what happens on the other side of your light switch. And I had a very steep learning curve to get there as quickly as I could. It was a great experience to learn how smart and difficult it is to do government work. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn a lot about public utility law and how the Commonwealth can work to bring about positive change in the way we use energy in this day and age. So thank you very much. I think I'm done.
Pretty impressive.
Thank you, Polly. And actually, so I don't forget, I want to particularly thank Polly, who has done more work to make this night work and indeed to make these programs work. Polly, thank you all very, very much. And thank you, fellas. What an incredibly inspiring, energizing, wonderful set of talks to hear. You know, it's my job at the Kennedy School to emphasize how rewarding, how important serving local government is. I can't think of a way of better illustrating that than what I just heard, of the sort of magic of serving, not in some grand way at the United Nations, but in a way that's tangible, a way that's real, a way that makes people's lives better. And you talked about it with such insight, with such flair, with such passion. It really was something that makes my night, my month, my year. It's really terrific. This is, of course, always, we live in a vulnerable Commonwealth. Our vulnerability was, of course, emphasized during the tragedy of the Marathon bombing. Our vulnerability is also highlighted by the changes of leadership in our cities, both, of course, in Boston and, of course, here at Cambridge as well. And I'm so thrilled that Bob Healy is here now, part of the Rappaport Taubman family. And of course, we're always vulnerable because we don't have oil wells and we don't have gold mines. And while Larry's not quite right that we haven't got anything else other than cranberry bogs, he's almost right. But our real riches, of course, are something far more valuable. Our real riches are our people, is the human capital that ultimately yields far greater returns. And that is what's so special about the fellows, is that they remind us of the constant renewal of this passionate, capable human capital that the Commonwealth has been endowed with for 4 centuries. And it doesn't happen easily. This constant renewal requires your work, but it also requires us older folks trying to bring it out in you. And it requires the constant gifts of the mentors and the supervisors who make these programs work, who give of their time, who contribute to the building of the next generation of leadership in this. And above all, of course, it required the vision of Jerry and Phyllis Rappaport, who at one point in time, of course, Jerry was not that different from you, right? He was a young, idealistic person going to work for Mayor Hines in his election campaign, coming to serve the city, and then having an amazing career after that. And it reminds you of just how incredible your life can be, not by pursuing something far away, but by working to build your own community, your own city, and making it better. So with that, I'll pass over the microphone to Jerry and Phyllis. But I will just say that Al emphasized that he believed that these programs were a great asset to Boston, and I believe that that's right. But I am also so certain what an incredible asset these programs are to Harvard, and how important it is to Harvard to have this, and how much we learn from this, and how much we benefit from your passion, your energy, your contributions. So thank you, and let me hand it over to Phyllis. Are you taking
Which mic should I use? Is this mic on?
Yes.
Okay. Ed mentioned old people. I think we're really young. This program was my husband's idea. Merging top talent in the great academic institutions of this city to some of the most key problems in our state and local government. I implemented some good processes to make it happen. Evenings like this make us especially glad. And, this is the second time that I feel we're very lucky, because by hearing each of the fellows speak, we're getting kind of a whirlwind tour of some of the key issues that all of us face. It's very exciting to have all of you participate, the supervisors here, in your full-time work, which we are very grateful for, and all of you fellows in your summer work, which we respect so much and are grateful for as well. We want to acknowledge with deep appreciation our extended team, which includes the advisory board members for Suffolk and Harvard, the mentors, the talented leaders from the 2 universities, and members of our own office staff and foundation board. If you look at our website, you'll see that our logo is the laurel wreath, the same wreath that's on the pins that many of the fellows are wearing. We designed the wreath to show how proud we are of people like you who we give prizes to.
You are our Olympic stars in public policy. We also give annual fellowship awards to full-time graduate students at the Kennedy School. We give fellowships to bright medical researchers, all focused on neurologic disease and mental illness. And every year we give a prize to one contemporary artist who has some connection to New England. One challenge we face is how to get Rappaport Fellows more engaged with and helpful to each other, even within public policy and across the different fields we're connected to. Maybe you can help us brainstorm and implement that. So I'm just going to tell you a little more about me and Jerry, and then it's his. We're active parents and grandparents of a very large family, a very precious family. I do extra work as co-founder of a public charity called Cure Alzheimer's Fund. And it's probably the biggest policy issue facing our world because it's so expensive, this disease. Jerry's board chairman of a classical orchestra in Florida, and his new idea is to fund composers of new music. We play golf with gusto, if not top skill. We have an office in Boston, and when we are here, Jerry goes there every day. We look forward to hearing about some of the great accomplishments that you Rappaport Fellows that we've heard today may share with us in the future. It's Jerry's turn.
As you know, this is a team effort. I got to make the first speech when you all came, and Phyllis said it's my turn, and so I'm just trying to fill in the voids. I do want to tell you how proud I am of all of you, and how each of you has contributed so much to my life by who you are, what you are doing, and what you will end up doing. It's one thing to have a vision of how you can encourage the best and the brightest to find the challenge and excitement of the policy issues that impact people in the local communities. It's another thing to see it realized. It's one thing to recognize that you have to try to accomplish for Harvard a sense of its own integration into this community, that it not be the ivory tower that has its distance and lack of respect, if you will, for the political process that decides public policy in the city and state in which it lives. To be able to see sitting in this room the state legislators who, when we set up the public policy position, it wasn't our goal wasn't simply to help them. It was to help Harvard. It was to help Harvard recognize that public policy is not really relevant if it doesn't get implemented. If it can't find a way in which it can achieve political success. If it can't find all of the things that you have mentioned in your experiences, the ability to compromise, the ability to bring teamwork, the ability to have respect for the other people whom you deal with, even if you disagree with them. It is, as we know at the time, very difficult to think in terms of public service, because the press is much more concerned with all of its failings than a recognition of the talented people who exist both in the legislature and in the administration. So I would like, as I say, to thank all of you. You probably have no idea how talented you are. You are all extraordinarily modest. But I will tell you from my own experiences, these are the most fruitful years that you're going to have. You know, I'm in my 80s. My wife doesn't like me to tell you exactly how old I am because it ages her, which she doesn't age at all. But I look back recently at some of the things I was doing when I was 20. You know, I hear the educational TV channel. It's tough for you to imagine that back in the 50s there was no educational TV channel. There was a big challenge going on as to whether or not educational TV channel was going to have a channel, and if it did, you don't know anything about UHF and VHF, but the educational channel would have been on UHF, which is 44 and 56. Yeah, I guess whatever those channels are now, 38 and 56, as opposed to 2. And it would have been 15 years before the TVs were really converted to be able to handle those UHF. But we filed legislation, and we really had a role to play with Ralph Lowe to make it into a being. You look at planning legislation in the 50s, there was no regional planning. There was no planning in Boston when Hines won. We set up the first planning agency that adopted a city plan, and in the 50s we began the first legislation to create the concept that there was a greater Boston area that needed a plan. I only mention it not to point out my record, but to encourage you to recognize that you know, if you're a member of a swim team, you know that after 18 you passed your peak. It's not necessarily true in politics, but these next years are going to be terribly critical for you, and you can do an amazing amount of things. And you have the capacity, and you have had the experience here to realize that you can influence public policy, and you can do it at a young age, and your idealism and your drive will be what will make our country and our community better. So thank you. And I do want to stress one thing which several of you mentioned. We now have 320 fellows. I am so thrilled to see some of the fellows come. And by the way, one of them is running for city council, Michelle Wu, who's somewhere here. Oh, she left. Okay, well, she's really an active candidate. And we have several Rappaport fellows who are running for Congress. We have 5 Rappaport fellows who are chairman of the joint committees in the state legislature. But all of you are going to grow, and we would like to figure out a way of helping you network with each other. Because just as you've had a great time here, each of you over the years are going to have increasing power, increasing influence, increasing circle. And one thing you know about life is that networking is one of the keys. And we would like to see if we can encourage this collaboration amongst you, and also to have you exposed to the outstanding talent that we also support, who are Rappaport scholars in basic research in the arts, and now into music. So thank you all for being here and making our dream come true. That's it.
I can't